crime shocked the world, but many of us were shocked once again when infamous serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered just last week in a Wisconsin prison. The man being held as the primary suspect is inmate Christopher Scarver. Welcome, everybody. We're live today from New York City, and we're going to be talking about the life and death of mass murderer Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey's father and his stepmother are going to be joining us later in the show to tell us how they're coping with the murder of their son. But first, our other guests. We have some guests here who are also affected very much by the Dahmer murder. Rita Isbell's brother, Errol, was one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims. You may remember her from her dramatic outburst at Dahmer's trial. Janie Hagen's brother, Richard, was also murdered by Dahmer. Also joining us is attorney Thomas Jacobson. Thomas is representing some of the victims' families in a suit against Jeffrey Dahmer. We'll see how you're going to handle that now that Jeffrey Dahmer is gone. I'd like to welcome all of you here today. My first question, of course, is when you heard the news that Jeffrey Dahmer had been killed in prison by an inmate, what was your first reaction? How did your family react to this? Janie?
Well, I was really, I was really excited about the whole death because, it's about time. He just needed to die, And to me, I was really excited, and I said that I was going to send a thank you card to the person who killed him, and that's my thought on that.
Rita, what was your reaction?
I wanted him to die the way that he murdered all of our loved ones. I wanted skulls here, arms over there, legs over here. I wanted him to die the exact same way.
Right. Yeah.
The audience before the show began what was their reaction, and many of them said we applauded. We were happy about that. Yeah. Can we go back, Rita? Your brother was one of the many victims. Exactly what happened? Can you tell us in your own words what happened to your brother?
As far as him coming up missing, he left home on April 7th to go to a key shop, which was a couple of blocks away from where Jeffrey Dahmer lived. And at that time, my brother lived a couple of blocks from where Jeffrey Dahmer lived. He met Jeffrey Dahmer on the way to the key shop. Jeffrey Dahmer approached him about some odd jobs. My brother went in to go and have the key made. Jeffrey Dahmer waited outside for him. He told my brother to come back to his apartment with him for more information. He took my brother through the back entrance of the apartment building, offered my brother a beer, put the sleeping potion in the beer. I think he said that my brother took just one sip and my brother was out. While my brother was out, he drilled a hole in his head, poured some acid into the hole to, make him a zombie-like. It didn't work, so then he killed him. He strangled him, and then dismembered the body, and saved his skull and painted it.
How does your family move on beyond images like this? Do you ever get over anything like that?
No, and we never will.
You can't get over it, Rolonda, because, it's not like any other death where you kind of like, okay, give them a funeral and everything, and you kind of like want to put things behind you, and you don't come across people that are constantly reminding you of the death. Like with Jeffrey Dahmer, it's constantly going. No matter what you try to do, you just can't.
The father comes out with a book. We're going to talk to the father later.
With the book, you've got trading cards, you've had movies. There's just a constant reminder and everything. And like I said, I am just really upset that the fact that everybody has been making money off of my loved one's death. They're not sharing it with me. And that's the bottom line. You
families have gotten no money whatsoever out of all the money being made on trading cards and stories being sold and all of those different things. You have not made 1 cent in.
No. Nope. They're the ones that are making all the money, and they get the gain, we get the pain, and that's not right. And I'm really tired of it. And I've seen so many people in Milwaukee, like just regular news reporters and journalists that they got promoted to better jobs and everything.
Because they broke the story, because they had an exclusive interview.
Yeah.
The rest.
They snatched up on the opportunity, came out with a book, and just started making money and not sharing it with the families, and that's got to stop.
Tell us what happened to your brother.
Okay, Richard disappeared March 24th, 1988. He was 21 years old, and you know, he was just like any other, you know, regular youth, you know, out to party a Saturday night, and he just never came home. And 3 weeks after, you know, I mean, three days later, you know, we had reported him missing and everything, and you know, we were like constant at the police department saying, hey, this is not just some kid that just decided to disappear. I mean, something happened. And you know, we're Mexican and everything, and you know, they kind of like just gave us the brush off. Oh, well, maybe he got involved in a gang, and you know, or something. He'll return, and I was just always pushing it, you know, and everything. But he had been missing for 3 years before.
3 years?
3 whole years before this story hit. So my brother was never found in the apartment. There's no remains on him. So it was just a sad situation, and you know, there's too many victims died because of their mistake. I blame the city
The
for
city?
all the murders.
Why?
Yes.
The city of Milwaukee, you blame?
The city of Milwaukee, the police department, because there was a pattern going. See, there's a lot of people that don't know really, you know, what's going on in Milwaukee. You know, I'm sure that, I don't want to sound like a racist or anything, but there's a lot of stuff happening over there, you know, and there's just a lot of stuff that people just don't care.
For almost a decade, these murders were going on.
Right.
These boys were disappearing. Nobody knew where they were. And you watched with the rest of the nation as this Jeffrey Dahmer was booked and all these revelations came out. I bet you never dreamed that your brother would be on those lists, both of them.
Right. Yeah, you know, it was like, you know, they found 11 bodies in the apartment and everything, and, you know, Richard's remains were never found.
You know, on this topic, and I will address some of the other things directly related to Jeffrey Dahmer, but I think that there is an urgent need for a national organization of victim rights advocates that could be organized, because I believe if something like that was in place, when you have these serial murder victim patterns emerging, what happens now is the victims end up going to the police. Well, you know who your major victims are? They come from your minority communities. How much do the police really care about minority communities?
Thomas, let's continue this conversation, because I think I'd also like to know how these families, I know that many of you have filed a lawsuit up to some $10 million against Jeffrey Dahmer, who is no longer with us. What's going to happen with these families as more things are sold? And we're going to talk about the auction of some of the things in Jeffrey Dahmer's home that came out that they're thinking about making money on. Let's talk about all this. Later in the show, we're going to talk with Jeffrey Dahmer's parents, who have an awful lot to say to the victims' families. It is their first time coming on a talk show since the death of their son. But when we come back, Rita is going to tell us what happened that day in court. All of us watched you when you had that outburst, when you came face to face with your brother's killer. We'll be back in a moment.